Welcome back to the Crooked Smile podcast brought to you by Macca Media Group. Today is a great day. We are joined by Benjamin Mchechesi, who runs the INDX HQ Instagram page.
Yeah.
Huge guest, and I'm very excited to sit down and talk to you today. We've gone back and forth a little bit on Instagram, and I think way back when we did the Zafty episode, you posted a little thing about it, and then found out about your page and got to check it out and had a bit of a look through it. And it's like an artist first platform to verify artists and protect artists.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can explain it better than I can, but what is INDX HQ? And
so INDX is like, it's a data aggregation and music promotion platform. So there are two main features of INDX, which is that we collect a lot of artist data, their performance statistics, their social media metrics, and all of that. And we use that to create an index score. That index score allows them to have a bit more of a clearer view as to how they're performing as artists. Often it's quite difficult to see that, especially if you're not at the level of being recognized by ARIA or, Billboard or those major, charting companies. So it just allows you to have that really clear view of how are you performing on what's called in terms of your music. Then the music promotion is that, we promote music, we do posts and reels and things like that about like artists. We run competitions and brand deals and sponsorships and things like that. So that's kind of like the direction we're also heading into.
I notice on your Instagram in your bio, one of the things you say first is you're an artist's first platform.
Right.
So what does that mean?
So the intention is to try and focus on the artists and what is the best for the artists. Often I feel as though some of these major companies, there's a lot of focus on part of the business side of it, but we want to try and inspire creativity. We want to focus on the creative scene in Australia. We want to focus on the artists who may not always be recognized by these big companies and get them up to that, up to that level. In whatever way we can, it's not always possible, but we're trying to do it. So tailoring all our services, tailoring our business model to ensuring that artists can receive the best services in a really accessible way.
It's fascinating because you see so many, and even if you just go throughout the Perth live scene or wherever, you see so many artists that they could definitely make it. Like they could definitely make it. They just don't have the exposure, or maybe, I don't know, they don't have connections in the industry or whatever.
Well, Perth's pretty isolated as well.
There's so many people you watch. Like I went to see a band on Friday. I went to see Matt Simic and Humble Armada on Friday night, and he was watching them. I was like, these guys are clicking. Like I've definitely seen in the actual mainstream music scene musicians that are worse than these musicians.
Exactly.
And it just takes that leap. And obviously from Perth, it's difficult. And we were talking to Zafty about that a lot. Is it hard? Is it quite isolated in Perth? That's just the nature of what it's like. But I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Look, the thing is like, on the mainstream level, I feel like there's kind of been a move towards doing whatever is going to make you go viral rather than what actually has quality. So we're trying to bring it back towards what is quality. Go viral, but with quality. Not just, meme music and things like that, whatever's just funny and things like that. That's kind of why I prefer music before 2000 because, I don't really like,
Same.
Yeah, he's a big fan of the old music. He used to, for his year 12 essays at school, his like creative piece, I remember this, it was always the death of music, where he'd talk about how music was industrialized and like it sucks now, and it was so much better when it was artist first and more creative and more
I was comparing
original.
John Lennon's music, or like Imagine to WAP. That was a genuine comparison that I made, and actually did okay at the end. But so what was the inspiration for that? Is it that love of kind of quality music? I don't know.
Yeah, just the love of music. When I was in John Curtin College of the Arts, I had a couple of friends who were doing music as well, and I could notice like they really had a lot of talent and things like that. But I noticed that at a certain point of growth, they kind of hit a plateau. And that's just because, Perth is such an isolated place. The amount of audience you can get like organically is also quite limited. So we were trying to find a way, how can we have a local focus but a global presence? How can we tailor the services, the structure of the business, everything to a way that we're taking artists from the local scene and putting them on a global stage.
Has this been a recent thing for you? Did you always know you wanted to get into this? Like, do you have you just said you were at John Curtin doing music. What's your musical background?
Yeah, so when I was like year 8, that was a kind of a period where like literally like everyone was trying to do something related to music. So that's kind of where I started, trying to do a little something, but I wasn't, kind of really good at it. That wasn't my thing. It took a lot of time and I wasn't really passionate about it. I'm actually making the music, but I noticed that I'm good at the managing side. I could identify where an artist needed to improve and, help them to get up to that point. So even Zafty, when he was starting out, I would I would listen to his music and be like, it's all right. And when he started making good, even nowadays, like even in class, before school finished, I'd be like, man, this is good or this is bad. Change this or change that. So, and often, Zafty, he's talented, amazing talent, very talented. And he's consistently releasing really good music. So that's kind of where that, focus on the music scene kind of started. I'm also quite a political person. I love politics, and I'm also someone who really believes in Australia as a country. I believe that if we really want to step up on the global stage, one of those main things that we need to focus on is the culture. We need to have a culture that is recognized on a global stage, and that people, when they think of Australia, they'll be like, yeah, this artist comes out, like the Kid Leroy, he's gone from Australia and now he's on such a global platform. That's kind of like one of those.
Or like Kylie Minogue.
Yeah. So in terms of like my music background, I'm not like a music graduate or something like that, from university or anything like that. But I just like, how do I merge my skills and, do something that also helps out the community.
So what was the turning point where you were like, I'm going to put all these like self-music aspirations and dreams aside and really get into more the business side of it and promoting artists and talking about the dream that you just had?
Right. That probably would have started when I moved schools. So in year 8, end of year 8, I moved to Kennedy Baptist College, probably one of the greatest schools in Perth. And so that kind of was that turning point because there weren't a lot of artists. And I noticed that in such a school, there can be some form of stigma around, what's it called? Making music. Not that it's bad.
Tall poppy syndrome.
Yeah. There's kind of that thing, and people view you, especially as a black guy. People view you in a certain way, especially when you're making rap music, and that kind of wasn't the way I wanted to be viewed personally, especially by my parents. They had already had like maybe, and I think it probably wasn't my personal aspiration. It wasn't really what I wanted to do. So when I moved schools and I realized that, maybe I could put more of my effort into managing or, investing behind the scenes and things like that, that's kind of where that transition happened. And before Sovereign was Sovereign, it was a music promotion. It was kind of like a record label type of thing. And that's what we were before. And that's kind of where, you can see that like trying intent to, promote the music scene. And it kind of continues, especially this year as we had Blackout, that event, as we've been working with Zafty and a couple of other artists over the years. It still kind of permeates through, even though we're no longer really a major focus on artists. Yeah.
So how did you personally join Sovereign? What was the story behind that?
Yeah, so Sovereign, I started it with a mate back in 2021. So back then it was known as DMG as a record label. And then we transitioned towards Sovereign in 2022, I believe, about closer to the end of the year. So one of the things we saw was that it wasn't working. The original strategy wasn't working. So we thought, okay, maybe let's focus to having a more general marketing focus. And that's kind of where we started building up from and investing in and getting clients in that sort of area. So we were now starting to work with some political campaigns, health companies, just various businesses around.
Yeah,
in
right.
the scene.
So it's not just music exclusive.
No. Yeah. So for Sovereign, it's quite general. It's much broader. Yeah. So we worked with there's a guy who's actually running for state parliament this year. We worked with him on his first campaign.
Wow.
Yeah. We worked with a couple of community groups.
Awesome.
Yeah. Health companies. Yeah.
So when you say work with, like, do you mind like the nitty gritties of it? Like, what actually are you doing
As a
for
day to
them?
day,
Yeah.
Like the actual service within it.
So there are a variety of services we offer. A lot of them, they are all under three sort of branches. So branding, online presence, and strategy. So online presence would include, your general social media management, your social media audits, cleaning up the profile, or paid advertising campaigns and things like that. Branding would include things like logo design, web design, brand guidelines, business cards and things like that. And then your strategy would include things like actually the marketing strategy. Checking how their initial strategy is working and how can we improve on that. Especially for artists, I think that's probably where a lot of strategy comes under. And our custom projects division also comes under that. So, sometimes some of the bigger clients will have certain projects which may not fit under the set services that we've already established before. So that's kind of where it also falls under. Yeah.
Is your business partner, I'm assuming, your age as well?
Yeah, she is. She's a little bit older than me by a couple of months, but yeah, she's also my age. Yeah.
So I was going to say, you guys are super young to be starting a business and offering services. Like, legally, is that even?
Yeah, no, legally it's allowed.
You've got like an ABN set up? Or?
Yeah, got an ABN set up, got a business plan and everything. Yeah,
Sweet.
Yeah, so it's legally.
That's super impressive.
Amazing initiative. Yeah.
I wish I was on top of stuff in year 10, 11 and 12. Geez, it took me 2 years out of school to get anything together. But no, that's awesome. So I guess one of the things I wanted to ask is, what are some of the lessons you've learned from starting this business and doing all the index stuff as well?
Right. I think the greatest lessons I've learned is don't be afraid to change the strategy if the original isn't working, right? Often business owners, sometimes we see that business owners, if they get into a certain groove or something, they will focus on that groove and they'll just keep trying and push, even if it's not giving them the results they want. So often with business, you want to be a bit flexible. You want to be able to, change up how you're approaching a certain issue, how you're approaching, a certain challenge. I think when we transitioned to a marketing agency instead of just a record label, that's kind of that, transition from, just being very rigid in how we were focusing, but instead to be becoming a bit more flexible in our service offerings. And I think that's probably the greatest benefit to the business. And over time, we've also had, structural changes and things like that have just been trying to make us more and more efficient, more and more effective. The way we acquire clients, trying to increase the scale, partnering with other creative agencies and things like that, other marketing agencies who are in the Perth scene, trying to, deliver better and better services. So it's all about, just like be able to change if what you're doing right now isn't working. That's probably one of the biggest lessons I learned. Yeah.
Do you see this taking up, now you've left school and congratulations, you graduated?
Thank you.
Do you see this taking up most of your life in the next few years, or is there a plan to do some stuff that could help it on the long side? Or it seems like you've already got it all sorted, so you might not need to worry about taking any sort of degree. But how do you see the next few years playing out?
Yeah, so I got an early offer for uni for law and commerce.
Yeah, nice.
So that's probably what I'll be doing for the next
Notre Dame?
No, ANU, Australian National University.
Oh, mate, congratulations.
So you're going to go over to Canberra?
Moving over to Canberra next year. So that's probably what I'll be doing most of the time for the next 5 years. But
so how are you going to manage Sovereign and Index HQ while not in?
So this is probably a question for the end of the podcast, but anyway, let's continue.
Look, I think the way we've been structuring it for the past couple of months is how can we automate a lot of the processes we do and make it kind of like self-running for a lot of the things, so that I reduce how much work I'm actually putting into it on a daily basis. So the way like now we're like reaching out to like a lot of sales reps and things like that to be able to be acquiring clients on our behalf. We're reaching out to creative agencies and other marketing people so that they can be also delivering services. So, it's all about like how do we make everything outsourcing a lot of these services, and we effectively become the quality control barrier. So you're
just the middleman.
The middleman. But like I think just assuring that when clients come to us, they come to one brand. We partner with all of these other creatives in the industry, and we pay them and they deliver the service, and we make sure that the quality is there. We have a quality control framework that we've been developing that makes sure that every service is like of the highest standard. So that's kind of what clients, when they're coming to us, they're getting.
Oh, that's super impressive. So how do you balance that at the moment with school? Or how did you balance it the last few years with school?
It was difficult. I would say it was difficult. It wasn't
Just still
easy.
at the same time finish school and get into ANU. That must have been a pretty heavy workload every week.
I think it was about doing like the long strategy. So when I started year 11, a lot of students, they would go for like those really difficult subjects. I think they call them the suicide six. Yeah. So it's like they'll go for like biology, chemistry, human bio, and all of that stuff.
He was an ATAR merchant, Johnny.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but not chem, physics, spec.
Well, I only got like a 90, but you got like a 98.
Yeah, but
crazy.
I was doing applications and everything. So. And I'm not going to ANU, unfortunately. But yeah.
So it's like this was. My friends were like, going for like those really hard subjects. I kind of went for the easier subjects that I knew that I could do well in. And because for early offers, they only look at your year 11 grades. So I just made sure I smashed it out in year 11. So I got ducks for year 11. And I think the selection rank was 99.
Smart. It's just outthinking the competition.
Thinking outside of the box.
So what was the selection rank, did you say?
Yeah, so once I got the offer from ANU, my selection rank was 99.95. So it was quite beneficial. Obviously, that's also adjustment factors because we live in Western Australia, obviously. So it's like, they'll boost it up a little bit. But that really helped me to get into that university. So by the time I hit year 12, I can spend more time focusing on the business as well. And even if I don't do as well as I wanted to in year 12, it's not going to completely adversely affect me. I can still get into the university I want to. So I got one for ANU and also one for Curtin. So, just have that backup plan. Yeah.
Do you see learning all this stuff at ANU and taking it with you back to Sovereign and Index HQ? Or do you see yourself then going into like corporate finance work or law work?
I think it depends how the next couple of years go. Yeah. I'm hoping that Sovereign can grow to a point where I can take it, on a more of a full-time basis. But obviously, often the reality is that with business, anything can happen in a very short period of time. So I probably will end up in a corporate law place, which will be cool as well. I mean, that's probably been my dream for a while. So yeah, definitely will be cool.
And going to the home of politics as well. You say you're passionate about politics. Is that part of the decision to go to ANU? You're going to go stir up some. You're going to go partner with some people in Canberra and maybe do some branding there. Yeah. Potentially, I'm just saying.
If you keep progressing the way you're progressing at the moment, you have my vote by the time you're running for parliament.
I think we're on a prime ministerial sort of. No. I was more interested in asking about what your thing, and we haven't put this in the questions, and this is my sort of, but the way things are going with commercialization of music, and these even the top artists, they get paid a cent for every stream above.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous the way that things have gone, and you're seeing now that all these artists are suddenly touring again, and Oasis. Not saying that Oasis wouldn't have had, but Oasis are coming back and doing a tour. You wonder why? Well, streaming doesn't really cut it anymore, right? Like music streaming has gotten to a point where it's just impossible to make money. So then it's like merch and touring and whatever. And like people don't buy CDs anymore, so you cut that out of the. So I don't know. Do you have a sort of vision? What would it take for someone to, I guess, create a streaming service, or do you see the music industry as ever going to be able to combat that sort of
becoming artist
hyper commercialization and or do you think we're just going to keep going in the direction of artists, being treated poorly by management. And,
Look, I think at this point it's quite difficult on the overall on like the underlying structure. I was looking at the stats. Spotify, it pays about 0.03 cents per stream. So about 0.03 to 0.05. It also depends on where the streams come from, if they're Spotify premium streams or, just normal streams. So it really is impossible to make a living based off of those streams. And I think with the current way it's being run and like the way, the industry has kind of gone, it's quite difficult in the current way. But I also think that, within the next 20 years, if the economic environment remains the same, if everything remains stable, you could also see the rise of a new alternative that comes up, which is a better way for this industry to operate, which is a more effective way, especially for, younger aspiring artists. But, I think actually these days is probably the best time for artists in history, because if you look at the way artists got onto the global stage back in the day, it was really, really difficult, and often you'd be at the mercy of like multinational record labels. So back then, your giants were like Michael Jackson, like the really big guys, and you'd like sell records. It would be really expensive to produce records, but now you can just go onto DistroKid and just release some music, and it just goes out
or
there.
TikTok.
Yeah,
you can go viral with a TikTok song.
Exactly.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, social media, you can kind of be, seen all over the world. Yeah.
So even though it's more saturated at the same time, it's easier to get that exposure and get onto the global scale through the advancement of the internet and technology and social media.
Exactly.
And you want to leverage that, but also keep, the artist's goals and focuses and as a human, keep that focus on them. And
speaking of humans,
interesting. I like that.
Speaking of humans, how's AI intertwining with it all? Have you seen like Drake AI, where it's like, what's your thoughts on the whole AI taking over music in the future?
Writing and that sort of stuff.
AI is a bit of an industry killer. In some ways, it's a bit of an industry killer, but it also could be an industry, it could supercharge the industry. It depends how people use it. AI by itself is not going to, take over the industry, but like the way people use it is going to definitely change the way we interact with music. I was using AI music the other day. Like there's this AI platform, I was just trying it out. And I'm not going to lie, I've never heard something so realistic coming out of a computer. It was just absolutely it was crazy, because the way you can produce whatever type of music you want at your fingertips is just ridiculous. But then also, if you look at how some of these things that kind of go obsolete over time, how they progress once there's a new technology in, it actually increases the value of that. So back in the day where you had hand painters really, taking hundreds of hours to do one painting, and now you can just basically just hit print and you can get any sort of painting you want. Now those old paintings, their value goes up. So as AI, kind of comes up, then you can see the value of real musicians' work actually going up, because it becomes lucrative.
But do you reckon you'll be able to tell the difference in 50 years time when AI is that advanced?
No.
It's kind of scary.
Little period before that, little niche period.
You just got to capitalize before it all becomes too late.
Yeah.
Well, the Perth music scene, you were mentioning before that Sovereign is running and INDX is promoting a lot of the music events coming out, like Blackout, which Safety was part of, one of our previous guests. And where do you, the Perth music scene's really unique, because there's a lot of great bands that come out and some artists that come out, but it's very competitive within Perth, but then no one else really knows about it because Perth is so isolated. It's the most isolated city in the world. So what's your take on the Perth music scene, and how do you see the future of it, and how is it going to be able to grow to have that global presence you were talking about?
Right. I think Perth is probably one of the best places if you want to be a musician, but it's also one of the worst places. We have such a vibrant music scene, basically, I could say a minimum of 1,000 people, artists in some way, shape or form, releasing music or, making music online, which is so good. But also the reality is that Perth is a very small place, and we are very cut off, as you were saying. We're very cut off from the rest of Australia and other major cultural cities and things like that. So it becomes difficult. But I think by leveraging what we do have to be able to grow Perth, the Perth music scene, and make it very evident. And I think kind of the world is starting to recognize it now as well. You're seeing more international musicians starting to come over to Perth. Usually they'll only stay in like Sydney, Brisbane, and Victoria, but like now, they're also coming to Perth, right? So it means like our cultural influence is also starting to be recognized on a national scale and on a global scale.
Except for Taylor Swift.
Except for Taylor Swift, yeah.
He didn't come
And
to
Olivia
Perth.
Rodrigo. Devastating stuff.
Yeah, so like I think if artists continue just pushing, if they continue using what they have, and I think also being smart about it, looking at how are they actually performing, having a very realistic view of what they're doing and how they're doing it, not just posting content, but posting content that works, then they could see themselves cracking into those markets that they probably couldn't before. And I think, they could have a really good opportunity. Yeah.
And in terms with like events, what type of events are you trying to put on in the future? What's coming up?
Currently, not much that I can say, but like,
it's confidential stuff.
We aren't really doing like organizing events much anymore, simply because it's a lot of money and it's quite a lot of work. But we are trying to sponsor events that are happening around. So we're trying to, start doing some brand sponsorship deals. Bradley Innes, he's a pretty big event promoter, event organizer around. So hopefully, we'll start contacting him, start working on a couple of projects or things like that. The 16, they're like, I'm not sure, have you heard of them? They're really quite a big marketing sort of marketing group and things like that. And they do some Afro events and things like that. So we might also want to start investing in some of those projects and events and see how can we collaborate with these events. So at the moment, nothing coming up. We're just a bit quiet for now, but like I think we've got a couple of good things coming up.
And in terms of sponsoring those events, would that be promoting the events through all of your platforms and even through some of your artists, or how would that work?
Yeah, so promoting through our platforms, we've got a website, dropping very soon. So we'll probably also be using that to also promote some of these events, and some of these events that we think that do have potential. We'll also probably be doing like financial sponsorships and things like that. Just giving a bit of money to support, help organize the event.
And then you get brand awareness.
Yeah, brand awareness. There are various deals that we can do to make sure that it's mutually beneficial. So
you said you like pre-2000s music. This is just a bit of a tack, but what's your jam? What do you listen to?
I'm everywhere.
What are your favorite? Everywhere, yeah.
Yeah. Look, Lionel Richie is probably one of my favorites. Nice. The Eagles.
Yeah, I love the Eagles. Yeah, they're good.
I was listening to Hotel California like on repeat the other day.
Yep.
Look, I love ABBA. Yeah, they're quite good. I must say, I only got onto them quite recently, but I'm really enjoying it. Yep. Frank Sinatra, he's probably
I love a bit of Frank.
Yeah.
Damn, man, you're an old
You got taste.
You're an old taste. Is that some of your parents' influence, or is that just you finding it out yourself?
Yeah.
Or like, what are we?
Kind of finding it out myself,
Yeah.
I think like my dad, when he was younger, he would really like a lot of that old school music. But a lot of the music we grew up with was like kind of like that African music, which I also like a lot.
Marvin Gaye?
Yeah, Marvin Gaye, he's actually really good.
Marvin Gaye's really good.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's like we grew up with a lot of that African influence, but like I kind of liked that old school style because often if you listen to the lyrics, it's quite deep. If you're just looking for like a slow jam, it's there. If you're looking for something a bit more hyped, it's there. And it's got variety. If you look at Whitney Houston's discography, there's a real variety in terms of what she makes.
She was so good.
Oh,
yeah.
I think she was probably one of the greatest talents we had in that, in that generation.
I love the movie with her and Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner.
Bodyguard. Yeah, such a banger. Have you seen the documentary, the mini doco series of Jimmy Irvine. I think it's Jimmy Irvine and Dr. Dre, the Defiant ones.
No, not yet.
I recommend going and watching that. It's one of the highest ranked things on Rotten Tomatoes for a mini series. I think it's on Netflix or something like that. But it talks about how Dre and I think his name's Jimmy Irvine started. It's Interscope Records, their label, and Beats by Dre, and how they came up and how Dre came up playing music and like listening to Marvin Gaye and chopping up Marvin Gaye joints on the documentary. And it's so sick. I reckon that'd be worth your time to go check out.
As from like a management perspective.
Yeah, how they monopolized sort of the music industry for that time and how Dre kind of he was doing so well. The Chronicles
doing NWA
came out,
stuff,
and then he tanked for a few years, and then he came together with Jimmy, and then they kind of started their label, and he started Beats by Dre, and then like that went viral, and then they had to start banning that in all the sporting things. So like NFL players aren't allowed to wear Beats by Dre headphones like on the field and stuff.
Oh,
it's
really?
like it's been like banned.
Because the sponsorships with someone else or something. Is that?
You'd have to watch the documentary. I watched it a few years ago, but they go into it and it's nuts.
Yeah, right. Wow.
But yeah, definitely go watch that.
Honestly, Dr. Dre is probably one of the biggest, like the best in the music business. I think he's probably really up there among the best business people, because I think the story of Beats by Dr. Dre is probably one of the most inspiring.
Well, they fully go into it in this doco series, and it's got Dre and him doing the interviews and stuff.
Oh, I got to watch it then. I'll add it to the list.
The Defiant ones.
The Defiant ones.
Yep.
I'll definitely watch it.
Definitely check that out.
Yeah. So you like the older stuff, and you're talking about lyric writing, and you're talking about the complexity of music. Do you see that from anyone? I'm just talking on the international stage now, or maybe in Perth or whatever. But do you see anyone that's still adhering to that sort of formula? Or are you worried that, I don't know, even with like copyright stuff and all that's just really difficult to, or does people want to make commercial music rather than, music that is complex and long and everything's trying to fit into a formula, and there's a bit of a lack of that sort of genius?
I am absolutely confident that there are artists who are still adhering to that, that lyrical flow, and I think it's actually growing now. Even on the charts, we've got Hey Zuko. I'm not sure if you heard of him. He's a very good artist, and he's kind of got like that lyrical complexity in there. He's got that actual real talent. Zafty, of course. He's definitely there. You've got JTZ. He's been doing quite good in terms of that. It's quite a good representation of like that side of Australian culture, which is really good. There's a lot of artists who are like that. I think it's just that they're not really seen because the market is so saturated, but there are definitely artists who are like that, who are producing good music. Friday, he's an American artist, but he's really, really good. I listen to him on repeat. He's definitely got a lot of that lyrical complexity in there, that lyrical knowledge, which is really showing. And it's really coming through, especially in some of like the songs that he's producing, the collaborations he's doing. It's quite good, yeah. So it's not like it's dead, but it's definitely coming back. I think so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to social media and running all the social medias for it and the platforms, is there specific platforms that you're going to lean towards more in the future that and try and leverage more? Like, how do you see the social media platforms, and which ones will you prioritize moving forwards?
Instagram. That's probably the biggest one. When you're doing social media management, it's also important to analyze how the global way of, in terms of like the geopolitical environment, how, the economic environment, how politics is reacting as well to different things. So recently we had the social media ban on under 16s.
That was this week.
Yeah. So it's like those are some of those things that you look out for, because there are obviously some under 16s who will be following you probably or engaging with your content. So that's probably going to dent a little bit.
Does that
in the numbers
mean they'll get unfollowed on your account and you lose followers as well?
Look, I think it's not going to really do
it's
much.
Downloads, but it'll be downloads from like now on, right? Because they're just encouraging social media companies to
is it ID
put in
required?
Strict. Yeah, it'll be something really, really strict.
Because that's only lie about your age.
But that's only for people that download it from now on, right? Like they're not going to make you re-download
it's
Instagram.
It's like my old PlayStation accounts. Like you always have to be 18, so you'd say you're 18 on your PlayStation account. And the moment you'd have a support issue and contact support, that ask you how old you are, and if you didn't say 18, they would just terminate your account.
Yeah.
It was a sad day.
I don't know if
trying
it's going to work, but
a FIFA points refund.
That's interesting. I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing, but I don't know about that social media ban. It's kind of. Do you think it's good that under 16 is?
I think
good to not be exposed to social media, or
studying psychology online at Monash, and he's currently doing his thesis. It's about the breadth of the effects of social media on young people today, because there's not a lot of stuff about it because it's so new.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to get him on next year once his thesis is complete to talk about his findings. Will Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
He's been on the pod before, but I definitely want to get him on to talk about it. But as a net negative or net positive, it depends how you're using it.
Yeah.
It depends if you're a producer or a consumer of social media. And I think the vast majority of people are consumers. So overall, I think it is a net negative effect on society for younger kids to be on social media, because it fries your dopamine, it fries your conception of reality because it warps reality, because social media is just picture perfect. Like, it's just like a slither or fragment of time. It's not actually the real world. And if you're an under 16 person, just going through puberty, you haven't even formulated your own views on the world yet, growing up and seeing all that can very heavily influence and shape who you are and your views on the world.
You're very impressionable, but then you get people like Ben, who wouldn't have been able to make his account if that ban was in, which is a crazy thing.
Yeah.
Like, we need more. Yeah.
But Ben's a producer. He produces content. He makes content. He's not a consumer. And this is where I'm saying, for the producers, it's bad, but for the consumers, I think is actually a good thing, because it can really rot and shape in a negative way the views of younger people growing up who don't know right from wrong.
So true. I think, like, I would say it's probably one of the best things this government has done, banning social media. Is it an effective decision? Probably not. There are ways to go around these things.
100%.
And I don't think, it's telling all Australians who are on social media that you're going to have to provide your ID to an American company is going to fly very well. It's probably not going to look very good, especially in an election year. So, so it's like, it's not going to be the best for us, but I think it's going to be the best for society.
I agree.
Yeah,
it's an interesting one, because the US we're trying to do that before. With the last,
all the back and
but that was all geopolitical. Thing.
Yeah,
but I mean that's it's interesting. It's only because that China were getting massive advantage, rotting the brains of the rest of the world, while they have like educational shorts
Chinese
for like
TikTok
how to be a doctor,
versus
how
Western
to do
world TikTok is crazy.
It's just another like example of their soft power and just using that kind of advantages that they have to their benefit.
You
but
can only go on certain
nefarious.
times of the day for the kids on TikTok, and then the content they get on TikTok is only educational, whereas ours is just pure brain rot.
But that's the thing. That's where social media can be such a useful thing. And there was a really good example recently, and I can't remember why. I'm thinking about now. There's all the studies coming out that our generation is that much healthier than our parents' generation. And I think there's in the recent, the biohacking,
we were in that sort of golden spot where it wasn't so far gone.
Yeah. Well, we went on social media social media was being invented when we went on it from like when we were 10 years old. I was talking to people the other day, there's like there's kids at school that are 8 years old.
I was about to say, now
that's year three, and they've got phones with social media.
Now you've got 8-year-olds running around grittying and saying skibbity toilet. And it's like,
hey, come on, it's pretty funny. That's pretty funny, man.
Thank God we didn't have that, because we were like 15, 16 when social media started coming around, because we're both 22. So because you're 18.
Yeah, 18 now. Yeah, I had my birthday yesterday.
So. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
How'd you celebrate your 18th?
Oh, not much, just like something low key with the family.
Nice.
We were going to organize a party, but the thing is, like, when you look at like a whole bunch of venues, they're all like, no 18th birthday parties, no 21st birthday parties.
Right.
So they've all just banned them. So it's like, might as well just do something.
Did you have a first drink, or you've drunk before? Or?
Nah, I'm not going to drink, man.
You don't drink?
Nah, I don't drink. No drinking, no smoking for me.
Well, I nearly a year sober. Haven't drunk. I've never had drinking as a problem, but I've just gone the year without drinking, and then I don't smoke either. So
fair enough. Yeah,
I understand.
Yeah,
but I was drinking at 18, so I don't understand, because I feel like that's a really admirable decision to make, especially at the ages of 18, 19, when everyone around you is doing it.
Yeah,
because
Yeah.
I found I was like just having fun, like not as a problem, but drinking casually with all my friends, 18, 19,
Right.
20, even a little bit of 21. But as I got older, like I stopped going out more and more, stopped drinking as much to the point where I'm like, oh, I don't really need it.
Sure.
I just won't do it because it's like if I'm only going to do it every now and again, I might as well just not do it at all.
Yeah.
But I could never imagine doing that at 18, 19 because to me, I had to figure out that I didn't.
Pressures,
I had to figure out and go and experience it to realize it's not really what I want to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
But is that a religious thing or is that a way your parents have brought you up or what was the decision behind deciding not to drink?
I think it's a combination of all three. A religious thing in some sense, yes, like, our church kind of has a thing against, consumption of alcohol. But the truth is, if I really wanted to, I could. And I know people at church who probably drink. And then, my parents always they raised us up in like, you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't touch drugs and things like that, which I think was really helpful. But also for a personal perspective, I look at it as like, is this going to really help me in the way I'm developing? Is this going to lead to the best decisions? When you're under the influence of alcohol, anything can happen. And I probably don't want to put myself in that position. I know my friends, they drink, and I've seen them drink. And, I've seen there's been bad decisions that have come out of it, and tragedies that have come out of it, the consumption of alcohol and drugs and things like that. So it's like, I'm not going to tell someone who's drinking to stop, like unless they're like, overdoing it and they're in my presence. But like, if a person wants to have fun and that is their way of having fun, let them go ahead. I know it's part of the Australian culture and things like that. Like, but personally, it's probably not something I want to partake in.
I think that is one of the positive trends in society is, I saw it the other day, but our generation, 20% of our generation or something like that doesn't drink.
Yeah.
Which is one of the only things in society that's going in a positive ways and more people are being sober and not drinking.
Exactly. In a country where there's a binge drinking culture as well, no less. Like you're not brought up with the appreciation of alcohol, which is why something is so massive that European...
Here's a crazy stat.
What?
Australian culture, we make up 0.5% of the world's population, but 19% of the world's gambling.
Oh, my days.
Gambling. What about alcohol?
I don't know. I just saw that about gambling and I found that fascinating.
There was like a ABC report recently about like, how we have a bit of a gambling problem, And
I don't personally.
It's such a culture. It's have some drinks, go on sports bet, go to the castle, go to the races.
Sports bet is a killer because it's not, people wouldn't say it's well, it is gambling obviously, but because it's so accessible and so easy, you're not going to the casino and physically putting your money down. But so people kind of, I feel like they separate that. They absolve that connect between
like your
gambling and it's just like,
you've got more control.
Like, fun, I'll put a punt on the day. And all of a sudden, if you aggregate all of your spendings versus your winnings, it's
you always lose. You always lose.
Yeah.
But yesterday we had on someone who just did a solo trip around the States for 40 days.
Oh, wow.
And he was talking about going to Vegas. And how Vegas doesn't feel real. It's like not a real world.
Yeah.
And you're allowed to drink at Vegas. Like,
have you ever heard like apparently like in those casinos they pump like pure oxygen into there so that
you feel like you love it.
Yeah, you feel really awake.
There's no clocks. There's no windows, so you don't know what time of day it is.
Needs to be like perfect temperature, so perfect comfort.
I'm reading
all this money that goes into it and all this research.
All of the research goes into habits though. So I'm reading a book at the moment called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And it's about how our brains are wired and how habits function and how our habits are shaped and how they're broken and how we can change them. And the amount of research that companies will put into habits, like habit research for people to get addicted to their products or make their product a habit in their life is crazy. And here's a really fascinating one. So toothpaste, no one in the United States and especially in the early 1900s, no one was brushing their teeth. Like 60% of Americans, like actually more weren't brushing their teeth.
So
I think
they
it was
put the yummy stuff in then.
No, so 10%, I think it was 10% of Americans in the early 1900s were brushing their teeth. They had a tooth epidemic. It was really, really bad. All the people coming to the militaries to go to war and stuff, they were getting flagged for teeth problems. And then what changed it is one of the toothpaste companies had like a chemical thing in it that made your mouth feel like nice and tingly afterwards.
Oh my days.
Probably like cocaine or something like that.
No.
That's what they used to
just
have
let me finish.
Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
So you know how like you'll brush your teeth now and your mouth will kind of feel like fresh and nice and kind of clean. So that actually has nothing to do with the product of what's brushing your teeth. They put that in there to make your teeth feel nice and fresh and clean. And they also make it foamy when it doesn't have to be foamy. So it gives the impression that you're cleaning your teeth and it's satisfying.
And then that's like in the cartoons and things like that.
So the way it works is then when you brush your teeth, the foam comes and then it gets nice and cleany. And that's kind of the reward for the routine of brushing your teeth.
Oh my days.
Yeah, and you got to reward yourself. Like brushing your teeth boring as hell, so you deserve it. Yeah.
So that's how they got people brushing their teeth is they started doing things like that. So then, because the way to change your routine is there's the cue, the routine, the reward in the habit loop.
Right.
And how it works is you can't change the cue or the reward, you change the routine. So changing what happens in the routine is it gets foamy and you get a tingly bit in your mouth when you're brushing it. That then gives the same reward, but you're changing the routine so it's then more enticing to do, and then you get addicted to it because you want to get that sense of satisfaction of all the foaminess or the tingliness to know your mouth's clean.
Yeah.
And that's how it becomes a routine. And it went from 10% of Americans brushing their teeth in the early 1900s to 60% in like a decade.
There you go. Greater good.
I'm saying and with all products, the amount of research departments put into habit research and learning how to get people to put their product into a daily routine in their lives that becomes a habit is crazy. And then the amount that the gambling companies do with the slot machines and getting people addicted to slot machines is insane.
Yeah.
It's literally, they spend millions and millions of dollars on research on habits to get people as addicted as possible. So when they walk in the casino, they're going to be there for as long as possible and spend as much money as possible.
Days. It's not ethical, but I respect it.
Respect the hustle.
Yeah, respect the hustle.
From
a management perspective, you know, it's cool. It's fair enough, but like, it's not ethical.
How did we get to Vegas? What we're talking about Perth.
We went on a tangent.
We're talking about alcohol and gambling.
Habits. Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah.
So, I guess when do you go over to ANU in February or
February? Yeah.
So what's the plan now between now and then? It's just automating as much as you can for Sovereign?
Yeah, automating as much as we can. It's been a bit of hectic these past couple of weeks, you know, just meeting after meeting. We are bringing a couple of more sales reps on. So, you know, setting all the stuff up so that they know what to do. Especially because some of our clients, they'll be here in Western Australia. So it just means that I won't be able to directly be interacting with them. So we'll be looking at also bringing on account managers and things like that who can act on my behalf. So yeah, it's just going to be a lot of automating, setting up structures, setting up systems, setting up templates, a lot of that, you know, a lot of the back end things like that. Just hoping for the best.
How many employees have you got on the How many people you got working with you?
So
was it all contracted because it's outsourced?
Yeah, a lot of it's contracted in terms of the services. A lot of it's outsourced. And in terms of the sales reps, it's also outsourced in a form. They are going to be partners of the acquisitions division of Sovereign. So they'll be part owners of that. So they'll get also a percentage of the overall profits. So they're not really employees as such.
They'll be shareholders.
Yeah, they'll be shareholders in a sense, yeah. So I think we've got like, in terms of Sovereign internal, we may have about 3-4 people.
Yeah.
And then acquisitions, we have about 3-4 as well. So 8 people, 9 people in total, who work as part of like the core team.
Yeah, nice.
Cool. No, I'm just really impressed. I think
you're super well spoken and super ambitious, and it's awesome to see. It's actually inspiring to see someone who's just finished school and they've got their shit together, but they're also interested in politics and also going to go study commerce law in Canberra. And there's at the point where they're going to be able to automate and set up their business to a point where they can just macro manage it from Canberra while doing a commerce law.
That's the way of the world, right? You don't need to be somewhere to.
Was there anything you wanted to promote, or where can everyone find all your stuff? What do the people need to hear?
Yeah, look, we have started a competition. We started yesterday for Australian artists. We're giving away $300 to an Australian artist who can get the highest index score on a song they release between November 30 and January 15. So if you release a song between November 30 and January 15, you just send it to us and we'll monitor it during that period. If you can get the highest index score, we'll give you just $300 just like that.
Should I probably ask about the index score? So how is the index score calculated formulated what categories we're looking at.
Right. So there is a formula we use which takes into account various things. The places where we get information from is like Spotify streams, monthly listeners, SoundCloud followers, Instagram followers and following. So we create a ratio based off of that. Also TikTok likes, the number of videos using a TikTok song, following. It's just like there's a lot of categories, and then we apply weightings based off of how important we believe them to be to an artist's development. And we make adjustments also based off of the region they're in. So some artists in New South Wales, they may have a slightly different adjustment in terms of how many artists are in that region in comparison to Western Australia. Yeah.
Is that's through
cool.
like a software or program, or is that like a fully decked out
you've
Excel?
got now? Yeah.
Excel?
Fully decked out Excel.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
So how long did it take to build that?
It's an ongoing process. I think it took me about 3 days to build.
Only 3 days.
Yeah, it took me about 3 days to build like the base
Excel
part.
model.
Yeah,
Inputs, outputs.
yeah, everything. And then now it's just building on top of that, trying to make a bit of automation with a couple of the things, because like obviously now we've got like 67 artists or so who are verified.
Should sign your band.
67.
He's got a band, the Fifth Odyssey.
Well, we'll probably finish last on the index at the moment. Once we kind of break through, we'll need someone to
They're
look
performing.
after us. Yeah.
You should plug your
the
performance.
29th of December, the Fifth Odyssey is performing at Indie Bar.
It's my mum's birthday.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Can't come.
It's okay. Anyway, so the index. So Zafty won. I saw Zafty's still number one.
Yeah,
on
he's
the
still number
index
one.
thing. Yeah, okay. Does that get to his head? Does that get to his head a little bit, do you think? Or no? No, we love Zafty. He's
on our outro music for every episode.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Mate, he was just so passionate about what he's doing. And he's just...
Own Life Isaac coming on next week.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Big fan of
that. So
that.
Zafty's kind of like number one. Has he been number one for a while?
He's been number one for the past 2 months, I think. Actually, he dropped last month.
Oh.
Yeah, last month he dropped. But that was because we actually made an adjustment after that. Something we saw is that when artists come in, because the score is based off of how you grow, like you're comparing your previous performance to your current performance. So it means that when an artist comes in, it will be like they've gone from 0 to 100,000 streams, for example. So it doesn't really work like that. So we had to like make an adjustment where, if you're a newcomer into the charts, it decks your
because he was on like Superman and then went to Proface, which then got 6 figures streams. So 100,000 streams. So that would have bumped him up a lot.
That bumped him up quite a bit. So I think like this previous month, he did very well. But this next month, because he hasn't actually released any like music, like his own music, he might see a little bit of a drop. So we might see him go to second, third place. JTZ might take the top. I'm thinking that's
Zafty.
Yeah,
Get some music out
drop.
there.
You got to encourage him to drop and just to cook, right? Yeah.
So
he needs to hold that spot.
Where can the audience find your handles? What platforms? Where can they find you?
Right. So index.hq, so INDX.hq. That is our main platform for businesses and brands who are looking to work with us. Index.thehub. That's where all of that stuff is. And of course, Solve Creative. That's the main one.
All right, we'll leave a description to all of them we'll leave all of them we'll leave links to all of them in the description below. If you're still watching, thanks very much for watching. Really appreciate it. And thank you very much, Ben, for your time. This has been an awesome conversation. I've personally taken a lot out of
promising,
this.
And it's promising to see.
The future
as
is
a 22-year-old, it's promising to see the younger generation, really
have their shit together.
Embrace social media for the better, because, there's a lot said about people using social media poorly and brain rot and everything, but there are benefits to social media.
There's hope with
well.
people
and
like
I think
you.
there's hope with people like Ben, Prime Minister Ben.
But yeah, thanks very much for your
Thank
time.
you very much.
Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And I can never ever. If you get lost, I press the rewind so you don't see now. I know I can tell that you a winner. I'm making key lime cause I was living in the backseat till you bag me. All my niggas never playing games like we bad street. When she's talking, feel like poetry in motion, and I feel like I'm chosen. When she look at me, I'm getting lost up in that ocean. Everywhere in motion, they ain't got a notion. I wanna tell the world.